With hundreds of South Africans stuck abroad, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation has assured them that they've not been forgotten. Yesterday, DIRCO issued a statement explaining that they were still negotiating with some countries to relax travel restrictions to allow stranded foreign nationals a chance to be repatriated. Thousands of South Africans are stuck in numerous countries around the world, like Indonesia in the Far East, Thailand as well, and even the United States. And as they wait for assistance, a local group of expats is assisting with the coordination and support. Home and away from home, organiser Darren Bergman joins us via Skype now to explain the platform and how it's helping efforts to bring South Africans home. Darren, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the programme. Do we have any idea just how many South Africans are stuck away from home?
Yeah, well, thank you for having us. We probably have about 3,600 people stranded at this stage. That's taking the minister's figures with us. Returned have probably been nearly 50% of the people have returned at this stage. And yeah, so we peg the figures at about another 2,000 people have to be returned.
All right, so tell us a little bit about what you do and what your organisation tries to do.
Well, basically we work with the structures in South Africa. We look at DIRCO, we work with the executive, we're behind the president, we're behind the minister. What we've tried to do is build the database abroad, find out exactly who is abroad, register them, find out what their needs are. Some of them you'd appreciate are running out of funds, running out of medicine, maybe not even have shelter, and then try and get those details to DIRCO, try and get those details to doctors abroad. A system where there's some people that are suffering from traumatic experience that want to speak to counselors, to psychologists. We put them in touch with them. And you'd be surprised we're actually assisting in some of the flights to repatriate people at home in terms of getting them registered, getting them to the airport, making sure that they are also being registered to come home.
So what has been the challenge to get some of the ones that are still stuck? DIRCO is suggesting that they're talking to their counterparts in these countries, asking them to relax restrictions. Is that the nub of the problem?
Yeah, I think we find the challenges are few. One is definitely that country. We find that there's possibly bureaucracy. Yesterday there was that flight that landed from Italy. There were only 80 passengers that came off that aeroplane, which we were very disappointed about. And I think if you have to dig into that story, you possibly find that, you know, if you take what the performance of DIRCO and you take the performance of the executive, that's not their usual standard. So something happened that we have to question that and say, well, if the minister has never performed at that level and DIRCO hasn't performed at that level, somewhere someone has dropped the ball. And we came back with an aircraft that can carry 200 at least passengers, even if you use social distancing, that only brought back 80 passengers, which is very disappointing. It was a wasted opportunity for us. And then there's sometimes where we haven't used the opportunity of logistics of getting people that are maybe an hour or two away, it might be another country, but they really just by flights an hour or two away. So I think sometimes what we need to do is exercise a little bit of patience, that the aeroplane can maybe wait there an extra day. And although it's costing someone somewhere for that aeroplane to wait an extra day, it might be worth it just so that we can get more people onto that aeroplane, but just, you know, casting that net a little wider.
Has there been any explanation from DIRCO as to some of these shortcomings that you've pointed out?
I'm going to be cheeky, and I'm going to say that in certain commissions, there's really good staff members. I think that there's some really great ambassadors and really great high commissioners. I think you can see them on our WhatsApp channels. They've come to the party, and I can really mention them in terms of Ambassador Jeff Deutsch, Commissioner Tembi, I use her first name,
Yeah.
Tembi Tambo, but and also the French ambassador.
Yeah.
They've been hands-on. They've really assisted. They've really been at the forefront. They've taken on the role of what their staff would be doing, and you can see in those embassies that things have really, they've worked. But there's been some embassies, and I can single out places like Angola, and now probably I can say places like Italy, where, unfortunately things haven't really gone to plan. And unfortunately, we've got to mention Thailand, not necessarily, when you look at that whole region between Thailand, Bangkok, Bali, that whole region, we're looking at quite a problem that's not necessarily just the logistics nightmare, but there's going to be an economic meltdown on both sides. And that I think people came there wanting jobs, and they were promised to be teachers. Yeah. And when the COVID virus broke out and the economy turned, a lot of people were left stranded without jobs, and the economy turned on them, and they were the first to lose their jobs, and were left stranded not just with the virus and in lockdown, but actually in an economic meltdown themselves. And now people in South Africa, their support service, having to send money abroad, and now facing their own economic challenges. You're sitting with a situation where they're desperate that side, their support system is desperate this side, and it's putting a burden, a double-edged sword burden on the country, on the government on this side, the embassy on that side. And this is where you almost need a hands-on embassy that side, and you need an empathetic DIRCO to sort out the issues. But it's going to get to a situation where, I think there's going to have to be another campaign, and it's not a voluntary campaign here. It's almost going to be a fundraising campaign that has to start in earnest now in South Africa to raise funds for them in that region.
All right, so have you been able to identify which countries have the most number of stranded South Africans at this stage?
Well, I think government has made inroads in certain areas. So I think the numbers shift a little bit. I think the neglected areas have definitely been to the east coasts, the areas I've mentioned now, Australia, New Zealand, North America somewhat. The ships traumatically have been, because of the ship's own rules and guidelines, people have been stuck on ships. Some of them have been stuck on ships for 8 months.
Wow.
And we're talking about crew members, and when we say stuck on ships, they're in quarantine, so they're in their own little room on these ships, and you can say that they're in their own hospital, and they're in their own natural quarantine. But you can imagine being stuck in a ship environment for 8 months is a pretty tough environment to be in. And some are not even luxury ships. We're talking about barge boats, so I really feel for them. You really want to do as much as you can, but they're trapped. We're talking about skills in South Africa that we can use. Trauma service in America that could be in South Africa helping us right now.
All right.
So it's hard to put a number to them, but there's definitely regions that we haven't really made inroads into yet.
All right, and I suppose technology helping a great deal to create a sense of community. There must be a lot of anxiety, but perhaps being in touch with each other is helping somewhat.
Well, that's how this project started. It started out, we weren't sure that the airports were going to be opened. Once Minister Mbalula had said that the airports were going to be locked down, knowing him like I do, I thought that was going to be the be-all and end-all, that it was going to be locked down. So the WhatsApp group was really going to be a community that we were going to be able to talk to each other, keep each other company, and be able to support each other over the WhatsApp channels and be there for each other. So it has, for all intent purposes, become a community. We get to know each other. We get to know each other's, what's happening in each other's lives, what's happening from day to day. We say good night to each other at night. We say good morning to each other in the mornings. We kind of know what's going on in each other's lives every day, and that's what it's become.
All right, Darren, we're going to have to leave it there, but thanks so much indeed for joining us, and keep going. A lot of people depending on you. Thanks so much indeed for your time and your
Thank
efforts.
you.
All right, so that's the situation. More than 3,000 South Africans stuck around the world, the Far East, one area that's been identified, North America as well, of people desperately trying to come home. DIRCO saying that you haven't been forgotten, but it seems as if the diplomatic stations, missions around the world are not working to the same levels, some performing better than others.